Hey everyone, and welcome back to another WoW video. A massive ban wave happened, Ian and Josh got a new set, and Blizzard have launched a new in-game promotion, amongst other things. There's a hell of a lot to talk about in today's news, which, as always, is brought to you by the beautiful people over on Patreon, and this month's theme is Hunter. Finally, the stickers have arrived. It's all lovely, goes along with this delicious art. It's only available for this calendar month, so if you're interested, hit up the link down below. It is the best way to help out this channel and get some really cool stuff in the process. And as for the channel, yeah, I know things have been quiet for WoW. At the minute, things are set to heat up again pretty quickly with 8.2, and I'm doing all that I can to ensure that we are ready to hit the ground running when the PTR drops. And on that, this is going to be a light edit. My editor is away on holiday, so right now me and my producer are stuck editing 12 videos a week, so this one might be a little bit faster. Okay, time for the news. So, Preach got banned. In fact, many people got banned. We do not have numbers to indicate how many people got banned overall, but it is extremely clear that a large number of players got a cheeky little bump from Ian's hammer. But of course, like with all of Blizzard's features, Titan Forging was involved, with bans ranging from a base item level of 2 days but potentially Titan Forging all the way up to 31. Of course, we all know how much Preach loves the game's current gearing system, so you'll all be happy to hear that he Titan Forged an item level 31 ban. So congratulations, Mike, and as always, commiserations to me. I got nothing. Being a little bit more serious though, Blizzard did issue bans, and this was because of the exploitable nature of the new leveling potion that they released along with patch 8.1. Multiple uses of it would actually lead to multiple applications of the buff if done right. So this was used to level alts faster than Blizzard intended, and because it was a use of game mechanics that were not working as intended, Blizzard considered it an exploit and issued bans. Now these range from being short to being up to a month, and as I joked, it did hit Preach as well. Naughty boy trying to level up his tunes. And yeah, I know, I'm totally doing the WoW equivalent of mentioning PewDiePie in the title, but come on, this only happens a few times, give me this one. Now look, I think it's pretty clear the game was not supposed to work this way, bar somebody accidentally applying this by refreshing it early and inconsistently, then yeah, a fair amount of usage would have been known. Like, that's just kind of how it is. It's impossible to know how many false positives that this ban wave will have caught though, but it certainly seems like something that could have been done accidentally by players, or could be stumbled upon by someone who had no idea that it was a broader issue in the broader context surrounding it. And really, here's the challenging thing. Blizzard are in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with it. If they don't ban people for exploiting the game, then it does seem like people are just going to be getting off easy, even though they did use broken game mechanics to get an unfair advantage over their peers. If they do issue bans, then obviously there will be false positives in a situation like this, and there'll be a large news story for them to deal with. And then it's further complicated by it being a rather victimless crime. As the saying goes often, no harm, no foul. At the end of the day, nobody really broke the state of WoW by getting some quickly leveled alts, and the speeds, I mean, they're not that different to some of the more powerful leveling methods that have existed in the past and weren't ban-worthy, and that has led many people to think the Blizzard are coming down too hard on something that just is not a massive issue. Right or wrong, I think the pragmatic thing would have been to just do a 48-hour temp ban and be done with it. Now, additionally, they will have known about this issue before the bans, so they probably, because of that, I mean, in my view, they should have just saved themselves a whole lot of bother by, as soon as they found out, making a blue post that warned players that this was happening, and that while they would turn a blind eye to the past offenses before the post, that future ones would result in a ban. I think that likely would have meant that fewer people would have exploited overall, and it would mean that far few bans will have been needed, which would have created less of a story. The final thing to mention is the timing. It actually has hit a number of people very hard. MDI groups are going to be down players, and for raiders, Mike included, Crucible of Storm's initial progression is going to be missed, which certainly will sting quite a bit. Next, Blizzard have announced a free weekend for World of Warcraft, and it's taking place right now. I think the reasoning behind this is pretty darn simple. Engagement in the game is down, and we have partially shown this on this channel with our previous video that was going into the community engagement numbers. Blizzard have realized probably that this new update has not seen the intended bump in player counts, so they're likely doing a free weekend in response, which is a fairly normal thing and it all makes sense. 8.1.5 is a perfectly fine patch that's just caught up in a wider situation that won't be addressed until 8.2, so there's not much else that Blizzard can really do. Ultimately, I would recommend hopping back in to check out the Brawlers Guild, and probably just not subscribing past that. I mean, for me, bar the Brawlers Guild, I'm not going to be touching live until 8.2's out. I'm just not going to be doing it. And I'm not going to be touching World of Warcraft really at all, bar the Brawlers Guild, until PTR. So why not get the good bit of content for free, have a simple good time, then maybe play Sekiro or a few other games until the next major content patch for World of Warcraft comes out. After all, 8.2 seems to be Blizzard's answer to 8.0. Alright, next up we've got the Q&A with Josh and Ian. Of course, it's a new set, but it's the same old show format that we're all used to. Just that now they have a B-cam to get some dramatic side angles of Ian. Very thrilling. So let's jump in. They were asked about RNG. Of course they were asked about RNG. I'm sure Ian spends his nights in sleep paralysis with the darn word RNG floating around the inky blackness of his waking nightmares. So what actually did happen? Did anything new happen about Ian and RNG? No, not really. It was primarily a reiteration of what we always hear, that RNG has always been a thing in RPGs, that there are now multiple tracks of gear for different playstyles, and that all has to, be balanced with high-end loot acquisition, and that once a player has completed their goals, say in 3 months, they'll just have nothing to do and no reason to log in. And, I partially agree with the core of it. As always, it's hard to say that Ian's wrong, but by being kinda right doesn't magically mean that we end up with an engaging reward loop for WoW. So Ian said the team is aware of the bad points of the system and they're trying to build some systems against that. For an example, they're building an anti-bad luck system that will give the loot system more memory of your past drops, such that you wouldn't be getting like bracers 3 weeks in a row from the Mythic Plus chest. Now that's fair enough, but I think that really it's a problem of design vision and numbers. I think the core of it is that the Titan forging system just isn't overly compelling to people. As we know, given an equal number of positive experiences and negative experiences, each of an equal magnitude, people will focus on the negative more than the positive. It's like that thing where you're more sad about losing $20 than you are about gaining $20. I mean, I'm in the UK, I don't even gain dollars, but it's just how psychology works, right? So WoW's loot system, I think it's perfectly designed to run foul of that psychology, and that's the core problem. Now take Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. Okay, similar-ish in some ways, but it gets away with it because it's got such a fast iteration time and high quantity of loot per hour, plus legendaries that are a lot more gameplay affecting. And if you look at, say, Destiny 2, it has random loot, yes, but the item levels are increasing in a rather fixed manner based on the source of the gear and your own item level, plus the game also has an infusion system. It actually lets you infuse a gun that you like up to the item level of a gun that you don't like, destroying the gun that you don't like in the process and meaning you can still use the gun that you like. Now, I'm not saying that either system would work in World of Warcraft, but I do think it's pretty clear that the current system, well, isn't particularly working that well. Perhaps it's possible to have a loot system that works for World of Warcraft's wide variety of gear, WoW's need for competitive balance, and the needs of the just pacing of WoW loot. I just don't think we're close to being there yet, and while I have thrown my own ideas at this before in videos, I'd rather throw it to you this time. Please tell me what you think a better system would be down in the comments. Past that, Ian talked about how it feels bad to just complete your set early on in a tier, and that if that happens too much, people just won't have goals to pursue in the game. And I think he's right that people will feel listless if they have no goals, but I think he's wrong in attributing it all to gear. If I had a pathway to get gear that respected my time, that had less RNG, I might be playing WoW right now, and I'm not. At any rate, I think WoW has a big reward problem. Past that, the cosmetic rewards are super limited, and again, I have suggested systems on this, but in general, the problem is that gear as a reward is stretched so thin because little else is there. And again, take Guild Wars 2 and its masteries as an example. Take any games with unlockable armor tints. Take my idea for a custom armor system, or my idea for mechanically customizable and useful mounts. Really anything here. The core is that gear can't be the only reward in the game. It can't be the only pillar for the game to exist on, and that if they try to stretch gear out too far, it just won't feel good to players, and I think that's what's happening right now. And just stretching it out too far ruins the experience of getting it, and sadly for Blizz, the only way around this is design work and systems work, and that takes time and money. So I really hope they're aware that this is a problem and that they're working on solutions for the next expansion. I just don't think WoW can take another expansion of loot being over-leveraged as like the only reward in the game that matters. I think if the next expansion is like BfA in terms of loot, I think we'll be in a really bad situation. Next up, and somewhat related, somebody asked about gear resets, saying that to them they somewhat invalidated effort. And again, Ian rolled out the usual response about the item level differences between raid tiers, and overall his answer was quite fair, as they do tend to be. I think that he did miss much of the part that catch-up systems play in this problem, and that gear is severely eroded by the near-free sources and constantly easy catch-up systems, and I think BfA has suffered more than most expansions from this. I think to the point where preparing for the next patch, that's just something that's gone out the window. You see, previously I know that I would try to make my characters be ready for the next patch. I'd be excited about a patch and that would motivate gameplay now. But now I know I don't need to bother, and that makes me play the game less. Now that said, when I come back, I usually have a good time with the new patch, and it's hard to tell what the overall balance there is. I think that they are leaning too heavily on catch-up systems right now, though, to the point where sometimes catch-up is gearing, and I think that has been very unhealthy for Battle for Azeroth. I definitely will say that I have cared less and less about gear as time has went on. Now, for me, this has went to the, well, basically, in Wrath and early Kata, I knew all the loot tables off by heart. In WoD, I didn't really care that much. In Legion, I really didn't care because of the annoying RNG of the legendaries and Titan Forging. And in BfA, I'm beyond apathetic. I'm actually at the stage where I just don't care about the state of my characters anymore. I just don't think any of it's that exciting. And that's a fairly new thing to me that is alarming. Now that said, I think the Crucible of Storms is a fantastic step forward. I wonder if a more ideal solution would be for gear to be statistically similar but be a design side grade like the COS stuff. I think that would keep each tier feeling super fresh. I think the hardcores might get a bit ticked off about it because I think it might lead to wacky balance. But I know one thing for certain, I'm a lot more interested in going into Crucible of Storms because I think the rewards there are cool. I think they have cool designs. If future gear in future patches was more like that, I would play the game more, I can tell you that much. And if they were to maybe extend this out to world content, such that you could have gear that would have extra effects in the world, and maybe you could customize that, well then we could be getting into a very interesting system where it's just about overpowering the hell out of your character and making it a crazy, power fantasy in the world by like customizing out your gear set. And if that's only active in the world, it doesn't matter for, Mythic Plus and stuff. And I think players could accept that distinction. Next up, the topic of measuring fun. Ian's answer was quite reasonable, actually, and he talked about how monthly active users, that's just investor talk, and how that doesn't really factor into design. And I really think he's telling the truth there. He said the player activity can be useful. For an example, in mid-Legion, activity was better than mid-WoD, and it's pretty obvious why. But he said the most important thing is direct feedback from players. Now, he basically did say that fun can't be captured by statistics, and that's all true, but when I look at modern WoW, I still think they went a bit astray, at one point or another. Basically, I think that fundamentally Blizzard make content that ranges in quality from, well, kind of terrible to excellent, like standout excellent. I think Warfronts are pretty terrible. I think world content's really weak right now. Islands are, but dungeons and raids are amazing. Brawler's Guild's amazing. The Mage Tower is amazing. There's a lot of amazing stuff there. And for me, I think their more creative content's been some of the best. Now sure, Chromie had a limited audience, but I think it was one of the best designed little things in the game. It had its use of the time travel concept that played into its gameplay in a really fun way. Same goes for the Mage Tower, for the Withered scenario, the Brawler's Guild, the 5.2 Trove scenario, and hopefully much of 8.2's world content. For me, I think the problem is they've overly systematized the game to the point where people don't engage with Azeroth as the world in an RPG, but they rather engage with it as a collection of systems. And I think this systemization of content has made for each instance of said content being less unique. For an example, every island feels the same, Mythic Plus feels like a very similar, homogenized experience. Raids, of course, feel super unique and are brilliant from everything that I hear, but take world quests, they all feel the same. Reps in BfA are totally homogenized as compared to, say, the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King, where different reps had different mechanics. I think the Blizzard need a higher number of varying gameplay experiences within each style of play. World quests should be a style of play, not a game system, to put it simply. If Blizzard want fun, they need to have genuine variety in their content, such that a quest designer in Blizzard will feel just more able to make a unique faction with unique mechanics, unique storyline, unique narrative quest content, unique repeatable quest content, unique progression styles, unique rewards, versus the current system where they're all the same, but with a different lick of paint on each one or the odd joke quest thrown in here or there. So really that's it. I think it's about designing fun from first principles. Don't think about content from the perspective of what system it slots into first. Just think about the content itself first. I think in doing so, they could increase the breadth of experience offered by World of Warcraft, and I think right now that's something that's kind of, it's been like increasing with all of these systems, but then the things that you've been doing feel more and more samey because they fit so well into those systems. And of course, it's a hard problem to solve, and I'm not saying the Blizzard are dumb for having that problem. I think it's a problem that just about every major company ends up facing, but the only way out of it is to sort of design from first principles something new, you know? Build the ladder that takes you out of the well you've fallen into, I suppose. Next up, Portalgate 2019. Yes, portals were bound to come up. The middle of everybody's bingo has been filled, and Ian stood by the team's post, which I think is fair enough, but he did also add that they will include a Caverns of Time portal in the Portal Hub's next patch, and that they do have a new continent travel helper UI element on your map if you have a quest in a different continent. Now look, I think that's all fine, but I do think he missed the trick here. He could have talked about the deeper problem. Now, that problem is that the world of Warcraft doesn't feel small because it's easy to get around. It feels small because most of it's totally irrelevant to content. Contrast that with Guild Wars 2. That's a game where the world feels massive, but they have near instant teleportation shrines in every zone in the game. So if they want Azeroth to feel big, to feel rich and vibrant and to matter, they have to make it matter. And that's really what they have to do. Next up, leveling. Simply put, they agree that leveling is not in a great state as regards to the pacing rewards, with Ian literally saying this: that's not what levels should be in an RPG, and we need to fix that. Which is perfect, he's so right. And that was about the feeling of losing power in BfA leveling, so I totally agree with him. Now, they talked about the idea of a level squish, saying that, you know, if there was only 60 levels, it would be easier to consistently give players rewards. Personally, I get why one would want to do that, but I don't think it's the best solution. I think if they wanted to really fix things quickly and simply, they could just give you a box of loot and gold every time you hit a level. It would at least be something. Hell, why not make that an endgame thing, right? Just give people a Paragon box and just Paragon levels that infinitely fill up. Why not? They can probably attach that to something. I think that might actually be a bit better than artifact power. I think that's actually what they want artifact power to do, but I think they don't really get that artifact power, in being so tied to your power progression, just doesn't really feel good. It feels more like a chore instead of like a fun thing that you're excited to get, I suppose. I don't know, tricky problem, but I think they could definitely do more there, and the idea of an infinitely filling XP bar, a lot of the industry's taken that on lately, and it certainly worked well for Diablo 3. Getting back to the point though, look, the core is not the quantity of levels. I actually think the core is the design of WoW characters. World of Warcraft characters are closer in design to MOBA or ARPG characters with a smaller number of more impactful choices. RPG characters typically have had more slow-paced, boring progression. That's what WoW had before they did the talent revamp, and I think it's safe to say that it mostly worked, maybe not for ideal gameplay, but for meaningful progression. So without changing the design of WoW characters fundamentally, it's going to be pretty hard for them to have this reward problem for leveling fixed, bar just, you know, flinging a loot box at you every single level. Basically what I mean is giving you a reward that is external to your character's design. They can do that really quickly, and that'll probably solve much of the 1 through 110 power issue, but if they want to solve that deeply, they're going to need to rethink the actual character design in WoW, and that's going to be really hard to do. Then next, a quick word about Classic. Basically with Classic, they talked about the power of community and how it is good to see that there's now a choice there for people who prefer the older style, that now exists, and that they are actually interested in working some of the ideas and the things that work back into modern World of Warcraft where possible. So who knows, you know, if Classic is very successful more than they think, it might give them the data they need to just, you know, make some decisions that right now seem super risky, actually not be that risky. Finally, Transmog Grills. This is great. They're going to let you hide your chest armor, which is fantastic for tattooed races and classes. Past that, they're interested in opening up those rules a little bit more, and also in loosening the Transmog rules. He did say that some things like, say, a height slider are going to be a bit more challenging because of how scale works from a technical perspective, and that does seem like a reasonable problem given their engine. So there you go, that's the Q&A. They did cover a few other things, but I think this is really the stuff of substance that actually matters and is worth talking about. So as always, please let me know what you think about these things down in the description. And if you would like more content from me, well, there's actually a lot more WoW on the way. We're ratcheting up the rate of content again, especially once, editor's back from holidays. But Division 2 review, half an hour long, on my other channel yesterday, and also there's so much content over there. We have our gaming news recap today, which is on that channel, as well as a bunch of other content, and actually that No Man's Sky video, people really seem to have loved that. Yeah, No Man's Sky Online, pretty crazy, isn't it? So there's that stuff. And then finally, if you'd like to check out the Patreon for some lovely, lovely physical rewards, unfortunately these ones don't Titan Forge, but I think they're pretty great when they're not Titan Forged, to be honest. So this stuff's on the Patreon for this month, and you can check that out. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about everything down below, and with that, I will see you next time.
Mm-hmm.